AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians.
You really caught me off guard with that
did
one. Are you going to introduce yourself as Jodi Lai, editor-in-chief of AutoTrader?
Well, I thought about it, but I didn't want to confuse anyone because it's like, if it's a first-time listener and I said my name's Jodi, that could pass. There's a guy at Trader named Jodi.
There are men named Jodi.
So I thought introducing myself as...
But as like a honky-tonk, like cowboy, I like it.
Yeah?
I like it.
All right. Well, my name's Dan Alika, and I am AutoTrader's road test editor.
And I am Jodi Lai, the editor-in-chief
Wow,
of
she is
AutoTrader.
so thrown off by
I don't know what to do. You threw off my whole flow.
Yeah.
I don't even know who I am.
Oh, because you didn't get to do your little hand flourish.
I just feel like I'm a creature of habit. When we change up the format, my brain is scrambled.
Remember, there was also one time I did the intro with this very like pomp British,
yes.
Yeah.
Like in a smoking jacket in a library. I remember that. Yeah.
That was like many episodes ago.
I like that. Keep surprising us with these excellent intros.
This might be a surprise. Jodi and I don't always think buying the performance or enthusiast version of a vehicle is the best option.
And we say this as enthusiasts, but also as journalists who are looking out for your pocketbook.
Yeah. So this, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I can easily explain where ideas for episodes come from. Sometimes I can't. This one is a little bit of both, where we had done an episode not too long ago that you can go back and listen to. And it's kind of, when to buy with your head and when to buy with your heart, meaning, if you need this one vehicle to do this one job, then make the smart decision instead of the emotional decision. This one was more about, I guess, the pitfalls that come with opting for the version you want, because, there are little loopholes that you can, intentionally walk through and say, hey, I'll shop with my head and my heart at the same time and buy something like a Volkswagen Golf R. That's a great car, but it's not ideal for, I think, a lot of people. And some of the reasons for that, we're going to get to shortly, but that's sort of why I thought of this, right? Because everybody wants, or not everybody, but people want cool vehicles. People want to drive vehicles that they love, that they're proud of, that they love, because I mean, as you always say, it's like a reflection of your personality. It's a great way to express yourself. So if you want something that shows that you've got, like a bit of an edge or an adventurous spirit, maybe you want something that's more capable. But that's not always wise, because there are, extra expenses that come with it. There are just like certain things that you have to look out for. So that's kind of where this came from.
So when we talk about enthusiast trims, they can really go for sports car stuff, but also for off-roading type stuff and SUVs.
Pickup trucks.
Pickup trucks too, So there are a lot of enthusiast trims out there. And they're all more expensive, right? And so whenever you're going to be spending more money, we just want you to think about if you really need it and if it's worth what you're going to be paying for it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's lots of examples that predate this, but one of the examples that I think about a lot is the Jeep. I mean, the Jeep Wrangler in general, we've talked about before. Don't get me wrong. I think, I see the coolness of the Wrangler. It's great that you can take the roof off, take the doors off, fold the windshield, no matter how much harder it's become to do those things. It's still cool that it's capable of doing all that, and it can go explore the outdoors. But we've talked about the I guess, safety risks that come with driving or being too confident driving a Jeep Wrangler. But the one that I think about a lot, then taking it a step further, is the Wrangler Rubicon.
Yeah, and so the Rubicon is named after a famously difficult, very challenging off-roading area, and it is maybe one of the hardest in
North
world
America.
famous.
I mean, yeah, it is. It's the Rubicon Trail is like, it's where it got its name, because that's where Jeep put this thing through its paces. Jeep takes a lot of pride in that little trail rated badge, but with the Rubicon, it was like, okay, we're taking it to the next level. and absolutely nailed the assignment, has been selling the Rubicon for, I don't know, 20 years, more than that now. Fantastic. So good at what it does, but it's such a terrible choice for so many of the people I see driving them every day.
Yeah, so truly, it's if you are an off-road enthusiast and you're going four-wheeling once a month, twice a month, at any time you have free time, you're hitting the trails, right? Absolutely go for the hardcore off-road Rubicon trim because you're going to be using it.
Yeah.
And if that is your lifestyle, you'll be okay with the compromises you have to make in other areas when you're driving.
One of the biggest ones, and I mean, again, this applies to all Jeeps, but all kind of off-road oriented vehicles, but tires, right? Not only do they limit, so all-terrain tires, they're less responsive on the road. They're generally a softer rubber compound, so they wear out quicker. And this is one area that drives me absolutely nuts. If you buy the vehicle, you buy the tires, and then you're too cheap to replace them. How many times have you seen some Jeep or a pickup truck on these super wide all-terrain tires that look like slicks?
And they're bald.
Because, people are realizing, oh man, I can't shell out whatever, $2,500 for another set of tires.
Yep. Also, those tires are not winter tires, right? And so I see a lot of people who have these really chunky like mud tires thinking, oh, if I can get through mud, I can get through snow.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
There's a very different, so like a lot of all-terrain and all-season tires are what's known as mud and snow rated. So it'll have like a little M+S. But a snow tire is not a winter tire. That's a misnomer. And it's an old one. It's an age-old one. But winter tires have a very, like a specific design, specific rubber compound. They're made not just for snow, but for ice, for colder weather. So, yeah, to Jodi's point, thinking that you can get away with running these, all-terrain tires in the wintertime is just plain wrong. But again, if you're too cheap to replace the tires, probably not the vehicle for you. In a similar vein, if you're too cheap to pay for premium gas in that performance vehicle that you have your eye on, it's probably not the vehicle for you. There's a reason why that engine is designed to run on premium grade gas. Octane rating is basically, I mean, there is a whole formula behind it, and how it gets the different classifications. So generally speaking, when you pull up to the pump, right, regular grade is 87 octane. Then you have 89, which I was talking about this with my buddies when we were camping. Who the hell uses 89?
I am not sure. I've always wondered this because you either have regular gas or 91.
Yeah. So 87, 89, which if you use 89, please email us at expert@trader.ca and tell us why. If your vehicle calls for 89, I've never seen a vehicle call for 89, but okay, moving past that, you have 91. Generally speaking, most pumps in Canada, I would say, have 87, 89, and 91. Then above that, you have some pumps that have 92, 93, and even 94 octane. Octane is effectively the knock resistance level of that gas. So how much compression it can withstand before it explodes, right? Because as you guys know, that's how engines work. Gas engines in our vehicles work. They're 4-cycle. So you have the intake cycle, you have the compression cycle, you have the ignition, and then the exhaust. What knock is that when that fuel is compressing, the air and fuel mixture is compressing inside that cylinder, then when it gets to the bottom of the compression stroke, that's when the spark plug fires and that explodes that air and fuel mixture. Knock resistance means that there is a point at which it will compress so much that it will spontaneously explode in the engine. That doesn't mean your engine's going to blow up. It just means that ignition cycle starts before the piston has reached the bottom of its stroke. And that's knock. And literally it means you can feel it. Now, there are knock sensors and engines today are better at withstanding knock, but that's why. That's what the different octane ratings do. Generally speaking, high performance engines call for a higher knock resistance. Therefore, they run on higher octane fuel because they have a higher compression ratio. So that fuel and air mixture is being squeezed harder and harder. And in order to prevent it from exploding too early, that's why it runs on that. The whole point of this rant is that if you are putting in 87 octane in a car that calls for 91, it's not performing the way it's supposed to be. And it can be dangerous, especially because it can run hotter. And also, yeah, vehicles have knock sensors and they can better withstand knock. That doesn't mean it's good for the vehicle to just constantly be in this state where the engine is misfiring.
But it's also like if you bought a performance vehicle, you want it to perform optimally. Exactly. And it can't do that if you don't have the right fuel in it.
I saw Chris, our producer, like while I was on that little tangerine just then, like he was like, oh my God.
He's never heard of this before. What's knock?
He learned in real time what the octane ratings and everything were all about.
And that's what we do. We make hard stuff simple for Canadians.
Like Chris Dupuis. Yeah. But yeah, the whole idea of, buying that performance car, put the right fuel in or don't buy it. And there's no shame in then picking, I don't know. I mean, whatever, it doesn't exist anymore. But if you were thinking about a Volkswagen Golf versus a GTI or a Golf R, if you can't afford to put in premium grade gas, just buy the regular Golf. Or I think the GTI can run on regular. So
I mean, there are lots of sports cars out there that can run on regular gas.
Now,
right?
and that's the thing, right? There are some, and this is one of those things, like the magic of modern vehicles. Mazda is a good example of this. Its turbocharged engines have a different output rating depending on the fuel, because basically the computer knows when you've put in 87 and it runs on a different program so that it is running as efficiently and as effectively as possible on lower octane fuel. And then if you put 93, I think is the number that Mazda quotes for, it's like 310 horsepower. Then it just runs more optimally on that fuel.
But most cars don't do that.
Absolutely not. And so that's why we've talked about this before, premium required versus recommended. And the other side of it, and I just had this conversation with a buddy that I had to kind of take the wind out of his sails a little bit, but he was like, I started putting premium. He drives a Mazda 3 and he's like, I started putting premium in it. And I was like, dude, you're wasting your money. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those, I don't know, it's kind of become a tale as old as cars themselves, right? Oh, it burns hotter. So you run that and it'll keep your injectors clean and it'll do it. It's like, no, it's not. That's not how it works. So you're just wasting money. Putting premium gas in a car that calls for regular, all you're doing is burning that extra 25 cents a liter that it costs you to put that good gas in there.
I've heard people doing that. It's like, I just wanted to give my car a little treat. I think those are the people who are putting 89 in their regular cars.
They just go, just a little,
a little treat for my car.
It's like the person that goes out and usually buys like Molson Canadian, and they're like, I'm gonna treat myself and get like Heineken this weekend, and it's like, okay,
bless their heart.
Yeah.
But okay, so going back to like off-road stuff, because I think that's a lot more common these days for people to be sold these like enthusiast off-road packages. So I really wanted to go through the differences, because sometimes they are strictly cosmetic. Yeah. And sometimes they actually give you more capability for your SUV. And so I wanted to kind of walk people through what to look for, depending on what they want. Yeah.
So if you really want an off-roader, like if you want a properly capable off-road vehicle, some of them are pretty obvious, right? So again, the Jeep Wrangler and the Rubicon in particular,
Bronco,
the Ford Bronco, and then getting the Sasquatch package. But things that you want to look for are like skid plates when they actually function, right? So not just I don't mean look at a vehicle and go, oh, that thing's got like a little bash guard under the front. It's like, look at the spec sheet, and if it says it's got like a transfer case skid plate or differential skid plate, those tend to be big. I mean, they're designed to fit properly underneath, but they're like big, thick steel so that if you come down on a rock out on the trail, it's not going to cause too much damage. Now, I mean, it can with enough impact, of course, but it's just an extra layer of protection. Going back to those tires, that's another one that, to me, tires are everything, no matter the application, whether it's a performance car or an off-road SUV, but like an all-terrain tire versus an all-season is going to be all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Can I tell you a funny story about that? So I was on a Land Rover event.
Yes.
And this event was a gathering of Land Rover Defender owners to celebrate the lifestyle and this and that. And throughout the whole weekend, everyone's like, oh, obviously, these are the most capable off-roaders in the world, and they are. They have that reputation.
They're very good, yeah.
But in the parking lot, so before we even got into the actual event, we were driving all of our Land Rover Defenders on regular street tires.
Yeah.
But it had rained overnight. So in this grass field, it just turned into mud, like a big mud pit. And we all got stuck in our Land Rovers because we had the wrong tires. I can guarantee you that if we had proper all-terrain tires, we would have just trucked right out of that mess, no problem.
And then the other thing that, I mean, it's less so in the mud like that and more on dry, rocky terrain and whatnot, but air pressure, right? That becomes a huge thing too. So people that think, okay, I've got the vehicle, so I don't need to do anything. It's ready to go. But it's like, if that, let's say that tire has a recommended pressure of, I don't know, let's just say 50 PSI because it's a nice and round number. If you're running, that's road pressure, right? So think about it like a balloon. If you have a balloon and it's filled with air and it's just kind of sitting on this table right here, and it goes to go over this phone, which isn't very big, it's going to like kind of bounce and be all awkward. But if you put some pressure, some force on that balloon, the balloon is going to kind of mold around and it'll kind of swallow that phone as it keeps moving along. And tires are the same way. So if you're off-roading, you need to air down in order to have the tires a little bit more pliable and have them work over and around obstacles as opposed to just kind of bouncing and whacking, and you're not going to get traction.
Exactly.
And that's what four-wheeling is all about.
Yep.
Without traction, you are lost.
Yep. That's a great point. Also, I wanted to bring up ground clearance, which is really important because a lot of these off-road trims don't do anything to increase the ground clearance, but some of them do. Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing.
It's, and again, this is one. So I think like Subaru is a good example. It's crossovers. So the Crosstrek, the Forester, and the Outback are all offered in wilderness trims, and those are more tailored towards the trail. They are very capable. I mean, Subarus in general are more capable than a lot of people maybe think. They have 220 millimeters of ground clearance. That's kind of the standard. Now, the EVs sit a little lower, and obviously the WRX and the BRZ do as well. Those are cars. But every Subaru crossover has the same ground clearance, 8.7 inches or 220 millimeters. Then when you step up to the wilderness models, they get an extra half inch of ground clearance, which doesn't sound like much, but if you are using it for what it's made for, then it is a significant difference out on the trail. It comes with tires, it comes with skid plates, it comes with different suspension and drive mode adjustments. But, and this is one of those things we're going to do in real time because this goes back to sort of what we just talked about with fuel. But the other thing to consider with these off-roaders is how much worse they are on gas than their conventional counterparts.
That's a great example because when you have off-road all-terrain tires, they're a lot less efficient than regular tires.
And then in general, like if you take a look at a vehicle like, I don't know, the Toyota Tacoma, the TRD Pro version, in order to improve the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter, if you look at the front bumpers, they have better approach angles. The bumpers are cut really high so you can get up nice and close to obstacles and climb up and over. The rest of the lineup, they look like they have like this big air splitter on the front that makes it look like a NASCAR truck. That part of the reason that's there is drag reduction. It's to have the air flowing around the vehicle. It creates an air skirt, like an apron, versus getting all caught up in all of those components underneath the vehicle. So that's another factor to consider. But I think the Subaru Forester is a great example because there's only one engine. Because with the Crosstrek and with the Outback, they use different engines in those trims. Where with the Forester, it's only a single engine across the entire lineup. Okay, so I'm going to use the Natural Resources Canada website because I, maybe should have done this ahead of time, but it literally just hit me in real time.
No, that makes sense.
But so this does not include the new hybrid version, right? This is just the gas-powered version of the 2025 Forester. And yes, the Wilderness doesn't have the same updates that the rest of the lineup does, but mechanically they're identical, and that matters more. Okay.
Okay.
So with the same 2.5 liter flat 4-cylinder under the hood of both of them, the non-Wilderness version, the regular version of the Forester, is rated to burn 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers in the city, 7.2 on the highway, and 8.3 combined. Okay. The Wilderness is rated for 9.5 in the city, 8.3, on the highway, and 9 combined. So almost 3/4 of a liter more for every 100 kilometers. And I'm telling you right now, that is an optimistic number because a lot of the reports that I've seen from other people who have driven the Forester Wilderness is that it's even less efficient than its official rating. And I know this kind of from example or from firsthand knowledge. This is a vehicle that's on my short list that I'm considering as a personal vehicle. And I am leaning towards the Wilderness version, but that comes from a place of, kind of deep thought and consideration of what I do with my vehicles, which is camp, which the places I go with my buddies, some of them, it's quite remote.
Mm-hmm. You do a lot of mountain biking. And it's like, so for me, it fits with what I'm trying to do. I accept the shortcomings of the tires and, those off-road goodies for what they do when I need them, right? But this is a good example where it's something that you might not think about when you are shopping for that. You go, oh, the Wilderness looks really cool. And it's like, okay, but you need to budget more for fuel. You need to budget more for tires. It's going to be noisier out on the road because of those components. Even stuff that you wouldn't think about, non-moving parts, like, these kind of upgraded roof rails and roof racks and cargo boxes and spare tires. All of these parts create more drag, more resistance, and that means more wind noise. And that can be when you're commuting. When I used to have an Outback, remember I had that big roof basket? Mm-hmm. I had a Thule roof basket that not only did I think it looked cool, but I used to use it. When me and my buddies would go camping, we'd load it up with stuff. But man, it was so noisy. And guess what? Now it's my parents' problem because it's on their Outback. I mean, it's noisy, but it also makes the SUV less efficient, right? Because it's more wind resistant.
Totally.
But in terms of off-road packages that don't have all of those actual capability upgrades, just want you guys to be careful that a lot of those are cosmetic changes.
Yes.
Like they will maybe give you roof rails, but like other, a different color for your wheels or something or other.
I think a good example too is
the Trail Sport maybe.
Yeah, or like the Chevrolet Equinox Active, which looks really badass. I think I just did. I think the review went live. By the time this airs, it'll have been up for a few weeks on the the YouTube channel and at autotrader.ca/editorial, if you search for the 2025 Chevrolet Equinox, I honestly think it's probably the best looking compact crossover on the market right now. It's super handsome. I really love what the designers did. And with the active trim in particular, it looks really good. Now, it does ride on proper all-terrain tires. They're General Grabbers, which are a great tire. But there are no other upgrades, including to, the software for the off-road system, for the all-wheel drive, the transfer case, all of that stuff is just the same as it is with the regular Equinox. And that is one of those issues where you could find out the hard way if you do want to go down a trail in that thing. I know a journalist in the States who had one and it got beached. Like he has a huge property that he puts these vehicles through their paces on. And he lives in outside of Portland and literally outside of Seattle, sorry, and literally got stuck. And his neighbor had to come pull it out. But he was like, oh man, this was supposed to be this upgraded version. So, not having an upgraded all-wheel drive system, not having a different suspension. Once you start to see those, and this is one of those things, do your research, come to us, email expert@trader.ca.
Yep. Go through the spec sheet thoroughly.
Talk to the salesperson at the dealership that you're dealing with. Really do your homework, because this isn't a decision that should be made in haste. Both, whether you need the off-road version in the first place, and then if you do, that the off-road version that you are considering is actually an off-roader.
Yeah.
And the same goes with performance cars. And one of the big ones that I had mentioned to you and Sebastian the other day in the office, that even though we don't really think about it, because I think there's always less sort of empathy for the wealthy, right? But it's like this idea that opting for carbon ceramic brakes, right? Porsche, BMW, Audi, all of these brands offer usually optional carbon ceramic brakes. And I understand if you're buying something like a 911, you might go, boom, check every box.
Yeah, give me everything.
But the problem with carbon ceramic brakes, right? That is a race-derived technology. So unlike, steel and aluminum, those are also used in race applications, but they're also used in everyday cars. Carbon ceramic brakes were born and bred at the racetrack. Those are high heat applications. The reality is, if you are not taking your car to the racetrack, slapping carbon ceramic brakes on it is the biggest waste of money I can think of.
They're also like 10 to 15 grand for an upgrade.
And also to replace.
Yeah, and then the thing is, they squeak.
So Porsche has like a disclaimer, a notice being like, yeah, they're going to squeal, because they do. And imagine that, right? You've bought this really nice, and it's not just the 911 and the Boxster and whatever. You can get them on the Panamera. Imagine buying this premium vehicle and you're sitting in traffic or you're driving down your street and your neighbors see you like, oh, there's Joe in his new Panamera.
And then you're like,
and then you squeak your way to the stop sign. People are going to be like, what kind of, busted ass Panamera did you buy? So it's like, make sure that what you're getting is actually what you think you're getting.
Well, and also what you need, right?
Exactly.
Like, be very honest with yourself on how you will use your car and what you actually need on a day-to-day basis.
Spending, 30 grand to get carbon ceramic brakes on a car to then find out that it was a terrible choice. It really sucks, because it's not something so simple as just being like, go back to the dealer and say, give me the stock brakes.
Yeah, or I'll just sell these carbon ceramics. Yeah. Like, it's not that easy.
That is one of those, yes, that's maybe like what you might think of as a fringe case, but it's all part of this same, approach. And then on the performance side, right, this is why, as much as, I always say, yeah, tires, that's a great upgrade. But consider it, if you're looking at something like the Subaru BRZ or the Toyota GR86, right? They come with those, what are they like?
Toyota Prius tires.
They're like, Primacies
or something, yeah.
But I think they're a good tire to kind of learn the car because they give you they're a little squishy, they're a little loose.
It allows you to like play a little bit more.
Exactly.
So our good friend Sammy Hadjasad bought an FRS back in the day, and it was his first sports car. So he like tracked it. He got to know it very well on those like Prius stock tires. And then once he got to know the car better, he upgraded to some performance tires, and he was like, wow.
It's a huge difference maker. But again, that's one of those things that's a pro and a con, right? Is that, it's better. They're cheaper to replace. That way, when you inevitably burn through them because it's a rear wheel drive sports car, they're not going to cost you as much to get a new set. They give you a little bit of flexibility and freedom because they can slip a little bit more than they can grip. But then on the flip side, if you opt for a version with, upgraded tires, know that they're going to cost you more to replace. So these are all they should be factored into your decision making. And more often than not, there's a pretty damn good case for buying, the regular version. Buy a Forester Sport if you want something that looks kind of cool.
But also the regular versions are also probably way more capable than you actually need, right?
Yeah.
If you're being honest with yourself and how you'll use your vehicle.
Especially, I'm not trying to be a Subaru stan. It's just like, that's the truth, right? Like if you were looking for a crossover with kind of baked in capability without even going for an upgraded version that's meant to head out into the great outdoors, a base Subaru Crosstrek will do the job. A base Outback, a Forester, because they're kind of overbuilt that way. They've got full-time all-wheel drive, which again, that's another one. Sorry to jump back to that. Is like if you're buying a vehicle that has a sort of slip and grip all-wheel drive system to take out on a trail, you are going to be cursing like nonstop.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other side of that coin, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I really want an off-roader because I have a gravel road up to my cottage. I'm like, my Golf can do that. Like, you don't need an all-wheel drive vehicle to do that.
You know what's kind of funny? Before we get to our Ask an Expert, I was kind of thinking about this the other day. So Will and I finished our shoot of the Cadillac Vistic, and we went biking as we do, and often we go to Kelso Summit, which is a conservation halt and park in Milton. Great bike trails. Any like Toronto and area mountain bikers who haven't been to Kelso would do well to go because it's not too far from the city. But so one of my bikes is a Forbidden Druid, and it's a sweet bike. And yeah, it's a lot of bike in terms of like it's kind of the Wrangler Rubicon of trail bikes, but it's a bicycle, and my buddy Mark works there and hooked me up, and it was it was just one of those things, and I love it to death, and I ride it a lot. So Will and we finished our ride, and we're sitting in the parking lot, and the bike was leaning against the tire. I was getting ready to put it in the back, and this guy came over because it gets a lot of attention. It's a unique looking bike, and so he's like chatting with me about it, and he's like, well, that's too much bike for these trails though. And he starts kind of like, just like giving me a hard time about it.
About it.
Yeah. And then I looked, and he was getting into an F-150 and I'm like, dude, you're driving a half-ton truck that's like showroom clean. That's never had anything in the back of it except for your bike, and you're telling me that I'm not driving the right vehicle for and I was like, come on, dude. Like,
hypocrite.
So anyways, that's my one little tangent of my defense of my bike. I mean, I had to add some bike stuff.
Yeah, but you're actually using it though, right? Like you use it for what it was built for.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a mountain bike, and also it's like, biking is a little bit different. Like, sure, I guess you could say, well, you wouldn't ride the same sort of like, full carbon track bike to go for like a Saturday ride down the street. And that's true. But it's still just a full suspension mountain bike that can do anything and everything that I want it to. But like for the sake of my relationship, I'm not buying another bike.
Right.
So this is an all-in-one mountain bike for me. Right? Becky already hates the fact that I have 3 bikes. What's the equation? For how many bikes is enough? One more than you
already have.
Yeah. She would kill me if I bought another bike. So I'm like, why don't I just buy this bike that I can do everything from ride Kelso to take it out to BC and ride the Whistler Bike Park.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of this bike.
Yep.
But yeah, having a guy in a half-ton truck that he doesn't use for truck stuff telling me that my bike was too much bike for the trails at Kelso, I was like...
I think he's just jealous of your bike.
He had a nice bike too. He was riding a Pivot. Like he was riding a really nice bike. But I'm like, let me enjoy my beer and my conversation with my buddy while you sit here and like look down your nose at me
so
for...
judgy.
Yeah. Anyways.
Jeez. Anyway, before our Ask an Expert, here's a message from your friends at AutoTrader. Having trouble finding your perfect car at the perfect price? The answer is AutoTrader. Car prices are dropping across Canada, and AutoTrader has hundreds of thousands of new and used cars to choose from. Get a great deal on your perfect car by visiting AutoTrader today. Today's Ask an Expert is a very easy one, very short one. It comes from Chris Smart. What is the easiest, most foolproof way to tell if you need new tires?
Ooh, okay. I think I'll give you 2 answers here. Number 1, there are wear bars inside the tread. So between the tread blocks, you'll see these little raised ridges that run horizontally across the tire. And once you get down close to those tread blocks or the wear bars, that's the time to replace them. The other 2 ways, actually, I'll throw another one in there. If you start to see cracking, any sort, it's time to replace them. But stamped on the sidewall of the tire, and it's like embossed on the side, there will be a manufacturer date on there. And that's your ultimate, go-to. And I would say, like if your tires are more than, if they're like used frequently, if it's like a summer car that is in the garage all winter and you only drive it a little bit, there's obviously flexibility there. But if it's a daily driver, I would say like 4 to 5 years is kind of your safe zone. But yeah, if you're not sure when those tires were made, you can look on there and it's like got this little box. And yes, there is a little bit of decoding that you can go on the internet and look, but it'll give you like the exact month and date and the location and everything in this little like kind of serial number it's like 6 digits that's on the side. But yeah, so cracking or any sort of like weird wear like that, check the wear. And then also if you're storing them in like a shed outdoors that's in a lot of heat, a lot of sun, especially like, we just went through this heat wave in Toronto. That's really bad because, these are petroleum-based products. They're rubber, they off gas, and that starts like the breakdown process gets accelerated when they're left in those conditions. So that again, if there's any sort of like discoloration or like bulging.
Can you explain what the wear bar looks like?
I mean, it's literally just like a little raised ridge. So like in the channels between the tread blocks, and these wear bars will be around the tire. Let's say, every 12 inches running. So if these are like, I'll show you guys on camera, if these fingers are like the tread blocks, in between them running across will be these little minuscule ridges that you would look for. But they're very obvious once you spot them. And if you're within like a couple mils of that, like yikes, it's time to go.
I think what we'll do is we'll try to find a picture of this and we'll add it when the episode airs so people can see it.
There you go.
Because I think that is the best way to determine whether or not you need new
that's
tires.
like pushing it. But I mean, for a lot of people that don't drive a lot, they might not be close to the wear bars, but I would still consider. And then honestly, one of the other great ways is to go to a reputable shop. They're not all out there looking to, make money off of you and rip you off and whatever. If you pull up and say, hey, could you take a look at my tires? They're going to let you know whether they need to be replaced or not. So yeah, that's probably the most foolproof way. But if you want to have a look for yourself,
just get a second opinion.
Yeah, totally.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for your question. If any of you would like to ask Dan or I a question, you can email expert@trader.ca. But that wraps up this episode. You want to close this episode in the same way you started it?
Sure.
With your cowboy voice?
Well, thanks for listening to On the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. Did you already do the email us?
I did already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're just closing it off. See you next time. That's what, yeah.
Until next time. What do you say?
Drive safe.
Drive safe.
And we'll see you next time.
And we'll see you next time. And then you go, bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Howdy. What's the opposite of howdy?
Duty?
I have no idea. Anyway, see you next time, everybody.